Los Angeles doesn't wait for anyone, but it buzzes differently when the rumor mill says Steffy Forrester will be home by the holidays. And the city hum is a countdown she can feel from oceans away. She returns not to a tidy house, but to a chessboard kicked across the floor, to production calendars blown apart and loyalties resketched in pencil, to press alerts that read like a dare and to a runway that looks glamorous from the front row and mined from backstage. Because Luna Nozawa has spent the last stretch playing unpredictable, abstract art with people's lives vanishing when consequences knock, reappearing when a lens points, nudging egos until they collide, turning whispers into headlines and headlines into leverage, bending sympathy into currency. By the time a jet touches down and Steffi steps into the December light, nothing is simple, not family, not business, not love, and certainly not safety. She lands like a decision, tailored black, hair pulled back, no apologies, the Forrester daughter who knows which door to close and which fuse to cut. And the first thing she hears in the car isn't welcome home but a blunt inventory collections delayed because a safe sample went missing, a supplier spooked by an anonymous threat, a preview reel hacked to include outtakes that frame hope for the future as derivative and Zende as careless. A pair of interns walked out in tears after a phantom HR complaint that vanished from the system. Donations rerouted from a Forrester Foundation gala to a shell nonprofit that lists a contact with Luna's burner number. It's havoc with fingerprints wiped and motives hand sanitized. A dozen paper cuts that bleed a brand in front of competitors already sharpening knives for Fashion Week, and Steffi recognizes the pattern, chaos as strategy. She goes straight to the executive floor and claims the air like oxygen, sweeping through meetings with notes so precise people stop pretending they weren't waiting for exactly this. And she issues orders that feel like anesthesia and defibrillator all at once, dead in the guest list, kill soft invites, reassign logins, no unsupervised access to sample rooms, secure a third-party audit of vendor chains, shut the studio at 9. Add daylight rehearsals with private security at both doors. She calls it temporary, everyone else calls it a return to adult supervision. Rich looks relieved and worried in equal measure because he knows what this version of his daughter does. She stabilizes the company and pulls a price out of herself to do it. Brooke frames it as partnership and then watches to see where her place lands. Taylor reads her daughter's face and sees a war she didn't start but will finish. Finn takes Steffi's hand and says the only line that matters to me what you need, and he means it because he always does. It should be enough, but the story doesn't come quietly when Luna's at the edge of every scene. She doesn't need a badge to feel powerful when attention is the currency. And her appearances are calibrated like jump scares, 5 seconds in a mirror at the back of Il Giardino, a gloved hand in a reflection on a studio door. A bouquet arriving with no card at a time only Steffi and Finn would know. A DM to a junior pattern cutter that reads you're being used, followed by a photo of their badge taken from inches away. It's theater and it's targeted. And when legal sends a cease and desist, it boomerangs into fan accounts that post leave Luna alone threads next to out-of-context clips of Steffi cutting budgets during a pandemic, weaponizing last year's survival choices into this year's PR wounds. Steffi doesn't blink. She built a new line in 10 days, an aggressive capsule called Reckoning, hard silhouettes like a shield, fabrics that catch flashbulbs like armor. And she casts it with models who have something to prove. The bus pivots, but so does Luna, because the one thing a disruptor cannot tolerate is a target who doesn't flinch. And that's when the city's luck runs thin. A gun appears in proximity to fashion, which is obscene to everyone who understands the runway as sanctuary. Nobody invites it. Nobody plans it the way crime stories pretend. Instead, it's a chain of dumb details that add up to disaster. One off-duty guard called in at the last minute because a regular is out sick. One holster with a retention screw that should have been checked and wasn't. One far too accessible backstage corridor temporarily doubled as a tech hallway. One moment of noise when a tray of champagne glasses hits the floor because a pop gets shoved and stumbles in the shock space. A woman pushes through the curtain toward Steffy with fury and tears in equal measure. Luna burning at both ends. And Finn sees movement to contact and nothing else because that is how he's built. To run toward whatever could hurt the person he loves. And he moves to shield, hands spread. Body already between danger and target by the time security remembers their training. It's ugly in the way real accidents are ugly, the way sound goes wrong before the brain can translate. A half-shouted stop from a guard who reaches and grapples and slips. A clatter of metal, a flash that's more white than orange, a crack that punches the air into silence. And then Finn folds with a stunned expression like he's late for something, like he can't quite do the math, and Steffi's hands are already on him, already pressing. Already saying the only prayer that matters. Stay while the room breaks into ripples of instinct. Someone screams, someone vomits, someone prays out loud, someone keeps filming. Because Los Angeles always keeps filming. The bullet takes a path as surgeons will call perverse. A ricochet off a galvanized bracket that changes a straight line into a wound channel nobody can predict. It spares an artery and ruins a rib, obstructs a lung and kisses the edge of his heart sac, and the numbers that matter are all the wrong ones. O2 dropping, pressure falling. Minutes to the ambulance stretching into a lifetime that only the person kneeling on the floor can measure. Steffi rides in the back and refuses to cry because crying takes breath and he needs all of hers. And she talks to him the way you talk to a stubborn child you love. Stay with me. We're not. Doneen tells the paramedic 3 times that he's strong as if that's a medical order. The hospital sequence condenses into buzzers and gowns, a surgeon who knows Finn as a colleague and a brother. A corridor where Ridge punches the wall because his daughter is holding a bloody jacket and standing too still. Hope arrives with a blanket because the practical things are what you can control. Brooke shoves cameras out of the way with the sort of moral authority that only appears when a mother looks at another mother's child. Katie becomes the logistics brain. Donna prays near a vending machine. Thomas breaks and clamps down because Steffi needs a spine to lean on, and he's it. Taylor, a doctor before she's anything else, speaks to the trauma team with a calm that looks like ice and is actually a bridge that carries every person in blue scrubs from panic to performance. Surgery takes forever and also not enough time. Steffi is told to wait and refuses to sit. And when the doors swing and the lead surgeon says the words "he's alive," it feels like the universe handed back 1 breath, but kept the next 10 as collateral. Finn is critical. In ICU, chest tubes, pain management, infection risk, the language of medicine that is really the language of bargaining. Do these things and you may earn tomorrow. The precinct calls it an accidental discharge within minutes, but the city calls it a scandal because scandal sells. And by morning the narrative is a scramble. A fashion show turns war zone. A Forester falls, a guard suspended, a video clip spliced to make Luna look like the shooter even though she never touched the weapon. A counterclip pushed by a burned account that claims Steffi staged it for publicity, while posing as commentary. Speculation as sport. Ridge wants blood. Bill offers it. Liam volunteers malice. He doesn't have the stomach to finish. And Steph eyes red. Voice even says no to all of it until Finn can speak, because she will not let the first brick in this next chapter be laid by rage. But quiet isn't the same as gentle. She redirects her need to do into the one place she owns: work. She moves the reckoning capsule from fashion to statement. Renames the closer's shield, converts the net proceeds to fund first response training and trauma grants for uninsured victims. Turns a night that tried to break her into policy and dollars because grief without work is a cage. She makes calls from the ICU hallway in a whisper that still sounds like command. And the board, shaken, grateful, frightened, falls into formation. Luna disappears for 24 hours and returns with a performance so precise it almost works. Tears that look like remorse. An apology to Steffi for showing up heated. A public statement about never condoning violence. A pointed aside that guard should be better trained, which reads as compassion to some and as a trapdoor shoved to others. She demits Steffi, a voice note that begins. I never meant for and ends with static. A non-confession that lays groundwork for 20 futures depending on which way the wine shifts. She visits a chapel nowhere near the hospital and lights a candle for a camera she pretends not to see. Then has a salad with someone who sells quotes for a living. She is already setting the terms of her absolution. Steffy declines to respond to any of it because her war isn't a press release. Her war is a man on a ventilator and to children who want their father. A calendar full of holiday events she now has to attend or cancel with a message attached to every choice, and a company that watches her to learn how fear should look. She does not perform fear. She sits with Finn and tells him the day's weather when monitors beep too much. She plays him a stupid song because he loves it. She presses her forehead to his hand and says thank you for stepping in. And when his eyes flicker because life wants to prove it can still surprise them, she has to turn away to let one tear fall where nobody pays to see it. The investigation's middle phase is where soaps live. The slow reveal that the off-duty guard shouldn't have been anywhere near the curtain, that his supervisor swapped shifts without clearing it, that the venue's secondary corridor failed a safety check last spring and someone signed it anyway, that a tabloid had a tip with the exact door where Luna would appear 20 minutes before she did, that a burner ran data requests on Steffy's driver tracking app 3 days earlier, that a threatened vendor pulled out the morning of the show because of a voicemail so specific it could only have come from someone who had internal run of show. Each fact is a domino and each domino leans into Luna without touching her because that is the dark card. Never hold the match, just move the curtains and sell tickets. Katie pushes for a criminal negligence angle. Bill throws money at a private review team. Carter counts liabilities. Justin remembers how to be lethal with a spreadsheet. Charlie vows to never let a holster inside a Forrester event again. And Ridge realizes his daughter is steadier than the entire city combined and hates that this steadiness is an inheritance no child should have to use this way. When Finn wakes fully, it's ugly and beautiful. He can't get enough air and gets angry at the tube and panics until Steffy's hands and voice cut through. And then he focuses like a surgeon does when the margin is millimeters. Where were you? How do I keep you safe? What went wrong? He feels the wrongness of his own body and still uses what's left to protect the person he loves. And Steffy hears it. The guilt because shields always carry it even though he saved her from a bullet none of them saw coming. She says the line that frees him because it's true. You didn't bring the danger, you stopped it. He asks about the show, and she tells him the truth. We missed the closer, but made a mark, and the mark was you. He sleeps again, deeper, and the city rolls forward because that's what it does. This is the part where revenge usually roars, where someone grabs a bat and a camera and turns morality into spectacle. Steffy's version is colder and more effective. She crowds Luna out of oxygen. She tightens every door she can legally tighten. She compiles an unglamorous dossier of petty cruelties and plausible manipulations that don't impress an audience but terrify a lawyer. She presses platforms quietly to deprioritize certain names. She offers support to every person Luna has toyed with and builds a ring of people who will not take the bait next time. She whispers to one investor at a time that volatility is no longer the Forrester brand, then proves it with delivery. She makes the city understand that whatever people think the Forresters do when the lights are bright, what they actually do best is survive each other and keep making beautiful things in the ashes. Luna feels it, the oxygen thinning. She pushes harder. And that's when a new thread emerges. Those rerouted donations trace back to an LLC registered by a consultant who once dated a man who once did freelance security at a Spencer party. It sounds distant until it isn't, until a photo surfaces of that consultant at lunch with Luna, until bank logs show a rental paid in cash 1 block from the venue, until a trove of deleted texts is recovered from a phone that shouldn't have been found because it should have been at the bottom of the marina but wasn't. The texts are half-coded and whole damning. Door 2 stays unlatched. Holster guy confirmed 30 minutes early. She needs to see Yokri. A script that reads like crisis theater and ends like tragedy because real life doesn't do second takes. Steffy doesn't gloat. She forwards. The district attorney doesn't promise. He subpoenas. The guard stops saying accident like a shield and starts saying I was told like a man who wants to sleep again. Luna posts a video in soft light about forgiveness and growth that would land if the city didn't just watch a man nearly die. And the comments turn sharp in a way attention addicts do not survive. The holidays arrive anyway, indifferent to blood and drama. Lights go up on Rodeo, and Forrester dresses them in a window that features a mannequin shielded by another. A quiet detail that only matters to the family and the patients on level 4. Steffy brings the kids to see Finn with a paper crown and a lopsided gingerbread man and terror in their eyes that only fades when he smiles. He puts a star on a four-pole-like ceremony, conspiring with absurdity to make a tradition out of brokenness. Steffy schedules one event at a time and cancels anything that doesn't feed what matters. She writes a speech for the Foundation Gala and throws it away at the podium and just thanks the people who pulled blood out of air and time out of a body and calls her husband a miracle without needing the word to be tidy. The revenge arc the city expected turns into something sharper. Accountability by inches, influence used with restraint. A public to board by nuance accidentally educated by it. Luna can't find purchase because chaos needs friction and Steffy refuses to provide it. When charges come, they come for the consultant first, then the supervisor who signed off on the corridor, then the guard with a plea. And Luna's name sits on a line-marked conspiracy to commit public mischief that looks small until the DA explains that every step that led to a gun near a runway is a step someone chose. And stacking choices is how law converts almost into consequence. Steffy doesn't attend the arraignment. She is at Finn's side while he does his first walk down a hall he used to dominate in Scrubs and now conquers 5 feet at a time. It's slow and ferocious and humiliating and triumphant. And when he stops, he laughs because laughing proves the world isn't only pain. By New Year's, the city has a new story. It prefers some new betrayal with better sparkles, but the families remember. The Forresters absorb the lesson that safety is not a flavor of luxury but the baseline upon which everything else is built. The Spencers learn that power is useless when it arrives 5 minutes late. The Logans do what they always do, show up with blankets and sharp elbows. And Steffy becomes exactly the version of herself the rumor promised. The general who runs both family and runway. The woman who speaks softly when softness is power and cuts clean when cutting is mercy. She doesn't swear vengeance because vengeance is small. She swears continuity, which in this town is the bigger miracle. Finn heals in percentages, which is to say he heals like a human, which is to say there are backslides, and then there are days the sun feels like a drug. The cliffhanger, because there must always be one, arrives on a quiet night when the house is finally still. A motion light flicks, a camera catches a silhouette. A text lands on Steffy's phone from a number not in her contacts with 4 words that yank the winter air out of the room. You weren't the target. She lifts her eyes to the window and, for the first time since the gunfire, lets herself feel fear not as a thing to crush, but as a message to read. She looks at Finn asleep at the door, at the past crawling toward the future with its hands still dirty, and she decides that the same thing she decided at the airport. When chaos comes, she will meet it standing. But this time she will not stand alone, and the city, loud and careless and beautiful, leans in to watch how a woman who has already survived 1,000 cuts handles the knife when it comes back around.